I never saw the car coming. One second, Ryan and I were walking home from dinner, laughing about something stupid, his arm loosely draped around my shoulders like it belonged there. The city was alive around us, streetlights buzzing, cars honking, the smell of late night food vendors filling the air. It was just another night, nothing out of the ordinary. And then everything changed. I remember the sound first, a screech of tires, loud, sharp, too close. Then, headlights, a flash of silver, and something in me, pure instinct, raw adrenaline, something bigger than thought, just reacted. I shoved Ryan. Hard. I barely registered the shock on his face as he stumbled backward, arms flailing. Then, impact. My world exploded. Pain, like fire and ice ripping through my body. The sound of crushing metal. The pavement slamming into me. And then, nothing. I woke up to a white ceiling, the smell of antiseptic, the slow rhythmic beeping of machines. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming. And then the pain hit. A deep, soul-crushing agony, radiating through my entire body. My head throbbed, my ribs ached, and my legs? I couldn't feel my legs. Panic surged in my chest. I tried to move them, but they weren't there. Something was wrong. So wrong. A voice, soft, hesitant, spoke. Mia? I turned my head, vision blurry, and saw Ryan sitting beside me. His hands were clenched together, his eyes dark and glassy. I swallowed, throat dry. What happened? His lips parted, but he hesitated. That was when I noticed the doctor standing near the foot of my bed. A middle-aged woman in a white coat, her face carefully neutral, in a way that sent terror shooting down my spine. She took a step forward. Mia, she said gently, you were in an accident. You pushed your fiancé out of the way of a speeding car. You took the full impact. My mouth felt like sandpaper. My pulse thundered in my ears. Something in her voice told me I didn't want to hear what came next. The damage to your legs was severe, she continued, her voice steady, rehearsed. We did everything we could, but to save your life, we had to amputate both legs. The words slammed into me like a second crash. No, that wasn't right. That couldn't be right. I tried to sit up, tried to look down at my body, but the pain was too much. Ryan quickly grabbed my hand. Mia, don't... I wrenched my arm away, wild, desperate. No, I croaked. No. But there was nothing below the blanket, nothing where my legs should be. I screamed. I screamed until my throat burned, until the doctor had to press a sedative into my IV, until the world blurred around the edges and I sank back into the dark. When I woke up again, the room was quiet, dim lighting, the slow drip of an IV. And Ryan, he was still there, sitting beside me, his fingers laced together, his jaw tight. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Then he exhaled and leaned forward, taking my hand in his. I'm here, Mia, he whispered. I promise. I'm not going anywhere. And for the first time since the accident, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, everything would be okay. But promises are just pretty words until they're tested. The first few days, Ryan was there. Every morning, every night. Holding my hand, kissing my forehead, telling me we would get through this together. But something shifted after the first week. His visits became shorter. His texts became fewer. Excuses started piling up. Work is crazy right now. I just need to handle some things. I'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow turned into the day after. The day after turned into a week. And deep down, I knew. I saw it in his eyes the last time he came. The guilt, the fear, the way he couldn't even look at my legs. No, my stumps, without something dark passing over his face. I wasn't the same Mia. And Ryan was a runner. I just never thought he'd run from me. But he did. He showed up one evening, hands shoved deep into his pockets, not touching me, not sitting close. I knew what was coming before he even opened his mouth. Mia, he started. I stared at him, my stomach twisting. Just say it. His throat bobbed as he swallowed hard. I can't do this. Silence, a cold, hollow silence that sliced through me worse than the accident ever could. I let out a slow, shaky breath. Can't do what, Ryan? His hands tightened into fists. I can't be the man you need. I scoffed, shaking my head. That's funny, because all I needed was for you to stay. Pain flashed across his face, but it wasn't enough. Nothing he felt could ever match what I felt in that moment. He stood up, rubbing the back of his neck. I don't know how to take care of you. The words landed like a punch, because that was it, wasn't it? It wasn't that he didn't love me. It was that he didn't want the burden of me, of my broken body, of this new life that terrified him more than it did me. I lifted my chin, refusing to let him see the way my hands trembled. Then go, I said, voice flat. His head snapped up. Mia, go, Ryan. He hesitated, but only for a second. Then he turned and walked out the door. I watched him go, feeling something inside me shatter completely. And I never cried over him again. There's a special kind of pain that comes from realizing you meant nothing to someone who meant everything to you. Ryan leaving wasn't just heartbreak. It was betrayal. He had been my person, the one I trusted, the one I thought I'd build a life with. And yet, when I needed him the most, when my world had literally been ripped out from under me, he walked away. The man I had saved had abandoned me. And now I was left to figure out how to live in a body that didn't feel like mine anymore. The hospital room became my world, a sterile box with 2 bright lights, the steady beep of machines, and a quiet so loud it made my skin crawl. At first, I refused to look at my legs, or more accurately, the absence of them. The nurses would come in, carefully changing the bandages, monitoring my stitches, checking for infection. I never looked down. I couldn't. Because the second I did, the second I really saw what had happened to me, I knew I'd break. But I didn't need to see them to feel them. The pain was constant, sharp, burning, electric, like someone was twisting knives into places that no longer existed. Phantom limb pain, they called it. It was funny, in a cruel kind of way. Even my body couldn't accept that my legs were gone. Rehab was a nightmare. They wheeled me into the physical therapy room for the first time, and I felt like a child in an unfamiliar place. The other patients had varying injuries, some recovering from strokes, some relearning how to walk after surgeries, but none of them looked at me. Like they knew. Like they understood that I wasn't just recovering. I was starting over. The therapist, a no-nonsense woman named Carla, didn't waste time. We're going to work on strengthening your core and upper body first, she explained. Your arms, your balance, everything needs to adjust. I didn't respond. Because I wasn't ready to adjust. But the world wasn't waiting for me. They moved me to the parallel bars, lifting me from the wheelchair. My arms trembled as I tried to hold myself up, muscles I never paid attention to screaming in protest. Easy, Carla coached. Just hold steady. I gritted my teeth, determined. I could do this. Then my grip faltered. And I fell. Not gracefully, not in slow motion. Like in the movies. Hard, fast, brutal. My body hit the mat, pain jolting through my entire torso. Silence filled the room. Everyone had stopped moving. I wanted to scream, cry, disappear. Instead, I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms, and whispered, I can't do this. Carla knelt beside me. She didn't help me up. She didn't pity me. You can, she said simply. And you will. I didn't believe her. Not yet. But something in her voice made me want to try. At night, when the hospital was quiet, I let myself fall apart. I thought about Ryan, about his words. I can't do this, like I was some kind of burden, like my love had an expiration date. I replayed the accident over and over. If I hadn't pushed him, would he have pushed me? Would he have saved me? I knew the answer, and it destroyed me. Grief came in waves. Some days I was numb, staring blankly at the ceiling, ignoring the nurses who tried to make conversation. Other days, anger took over. A wildfire inside me that I didn't know how to put out. I screamed into my pillow, threw a water bottle across the room. I hated Ryan. I hated myself more. Because no matter how much I wanted to erase him, he still lived in the pieces of me he had broken. The first time I saw them, the prosthetics, I felt nothing. The doctor wheeled them into my room, laying them carefully on a table like they were some kind of gift. These are the latest models, she explained. Lightweight, fully adjustable. You'll have to learn to balance, but with time, you'll be able to walk again. Walk again. The words should have meant something. Instead, I just stared at them. They looked ugly, bulky, like machines, not like legs, not like me. I reached out hesitantly, my fingers brushing the cold metal. This was my future now. These lifeless, rigid things were supposed to replace what I had lost. I pulled my hand away. I don't want them. The doctor's expression softened. I understand, but just try. I didn't want to try. I wanted my real legs. I wanted my real life. But that life was gone, and whether I liked it or not, this was the only path forward. So I nodded. Not because I believed in it, not because I was ready, but because I refused to let this be the end of me. I always thought rock bottom was just a phrase, something people said to be dramatic. But I learned the hard way that rock bottom is real, and it's not some poetic, tragic moment that changes your life instantly. It's slow, heavy, suffocating. It's waking up every morning and feeling like the world is moving forward without you. It's looking at your reflection and seeing a stranger staring back. It's wondering, is this all I have left? And then one day, you decide to fight back. I had spent weeks sitting in a hospital bed, staring at my prosthetic legs like they were foreign objects. The first time I tried them on, I hated them. They were cold, unnatural, wrong. They didn't feel like an extension of me. They felt like a reminder of everything I had lost. But then, one night, I had a thought. I was a medical engineer, a brilliant one if I may add. This was my field, my expertise. So why was I sitting here waiting for other people to design something for me? Something inside me clicked. I wasn't going to settle for what they gave me. I was going to build something better. I started with sketches. Messy, frantic, endless sketches on hospital napkins, notebook pages, the backs of my physical therapy handouts. I wanted prosthetics that didn't just function but felt natural. That moved with me instead of making me move for them. The first time I tried modifying an existing prosthetic, it was a disaster. I thought I had everything figured out, adjusted the angle of the ankle joint, tried to replicate the natural movement of a real foot. But when I tested it, the damn thing locked up completely, and I face-planted onto the therapy mat in front of a room full of patients. That was failure number one. Failure number two was when I tried to create a lighter frame using carbon fiber. It was sleek, smooth, felt like something out of a sci-fi movie, and it snapped in half the second I put my weight on it. Failure number three involved an attempt at hydraulic-powered ankle movement. It leaked oil all over my therapist's floor. Failure number four, let's just say it resulted in a fire, a very, very small fire. By failure number 10, I was ready to give up. I was sitting in bed one night staring at my latest failed prototype when I felt it. That creeping doubt, that voice in my head whispering, maybe you're not meant to do this. Maybe this is impossible. I almost believed it. But then I thought, why does this have to feel like a compromise? Why was every prosthetic I had ever seen designed to be invisible? To blend in, to look like something neutral, like it was supposed to be hidden? Why should I have to hide? What if prosthetics weren't just functional? What if they were beautiful? What if they were customizable, interchangeable for different looks, different outfits, different occasions? What if losing my legs didn't mean losing my ability to express myself? The thought was like a spark. Suddenly, my failures didn't feel like failures. They felt like steps towards something bigger. I went back to the drawing board, literally. This time, I designed legs that could adapt to the user's needs. A core-based structure that mimicked real muscle movement, allowing for better balance and flexibility. Interchangeable covers that could be swapped out. Sleek, futuristic metal one day. A stylish matte black the next. A magnetic attachment system for different footwear, so I could wear heels, sneakers, boots, whatever I wanted. I didn't just want to walk. I wanted to run again, dance again, feel confident again. So I added shock absorption technology that allowed me to jump, sprint, even move in ways traditional prosthetics never could. For the first time since the accident, I felt excited about something. I stayed up for days finishing it, adjusting the structure, reworking the joints. By the time I was done, my fingers were covered in burns from soldering metal. My eyes felt like sandpaper, and I was running on nothing but caffeine and sheer stubbornness. But when I strapped them on and took that first step, it felt right. Smooth, effortless, like they belonged to me. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was learning to walk again. I felt like I was just walking. And that was everything. The first time I stepped outside on my own prosthetic legs, my heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. It wasn't just about walking, it was about being seen. For months, I had avoided mirrors. I had avoided people. I had avoided myself. But now I was stepping into the world on my terms. I stood at the edge of my apartment door, fingers gripping the handle, my breath shallow. Outside, the world moved on as if nothing had changed. Cars honked. People walked down the sidewalk. Someone was laughing a few doors down. It felt normal. But for me, this moment was anything but. I glanced down at my legs. Sleek, powerful, designed by my own hands. I had made these, and I was about to test them in the real world. I took a breath, and then I stepped out. At first, people stared. I could feel their eyes scanning my legs, their curiosity buzzing around me like static. But this time, I didn't shrink under it, because these weren't hospital-issued prosthetics. These weren't designed to look natural or to be hidden under long pants. No, they were bold. Sleek black with a metallic blue finish, curving with an elegance that made them look futuristic. I had made a statement, and people noticed. And then something happened. The staring turned into something else. Admiration. I caught the wide-eyed look of a teenage girl sitting at a cafe, watching me like I had just stepped out of a sci-fi movie. She wasn't staring at me like I was broken. She was staring like she wanted to be me. I stopped by a coffee shop, still nervous, still hyper-aware of every movement. As I was stirring sugar into my drink, I heard a hesitant voice beside me. "Excuse me?" a woman said, glancing down at my legs. "I hope this isn't rude, but where did you get those?" I blinked. "Oh, I made them." Her eyes widened. "You made them?" I nodded, feeling a little shy now. "Yeah, I'm a medical engineer. I designed them myself." She smiled, shaking her head in disbelief. "That's incredible. My son lost his leg last year, and the prosthetics they gave him—" She sighed. "He hates them. He says they make him feel like a patient, not a person." Something inside me clicked. He wasn't the only one who felt that way. I had felt that way. Maybe there were more people like us. I grabbed a napkin and scribbled down my email. "Tell him to reach out to me. Maybe I can help." She took it, eyes shining. "Thank you, really." And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was meant for something bigger. That wasn't the only conversation. Later that day, a teenager with a missing limb stopped me outside a bookstore. "Hey," he said, looking down at my legs. "Those are so cool." I grinned. "Thanks." His gaze flickered with something uncertain, hesitant. "Were they, custom?" "I designed them myself," I said. "You like them?" He nodded quickly. "Yeah, a lot. I mean, mine just look like, you know, boring legs." I studied him. He was young, maybe 17, wearing a hoodie and basketball shorts, his prosthetic hidden under fabric. He wasn't ashamed, but he wasn't proud of it either. And that's when it really hit me. This wasn't just about me. I wasn't the only one who wanted prosthetics that weren't just functional, but expressive. The medical world treated them as replacements. But what if they were accessories, fashion, statements? What if people could choose how they wanted to look, just like picking out shoes or clothes? The idea wouldn't leave me alone. That night, I went home, pulled out my notebook, and started sketching. It started small. At first, I worked alone, designing a few different styles of prosthetics for myself, experimenting with colors, materials, and patterns. Then, word started spreading. Friends of friends, people from physical therapy, strangers who had heard about me through whispers. They all started asking if I could make something for them. Emails poured in. "Hey, I saw your design. Can you make one for me?" I never thought about prosthetics like this before. "Do you sell them?" "My daughter is 8 and she wants a pink leg with sparkles. Can you do that?" And before I knew it, I wasn't just designing for myself anymore. I was designing for everyone. One day, I got an email from a small medical supply company asking if I'd be interested in partnering with them to develop customizable prosthetic covers. I nearly dropped my phone. This wasn't just personal anymore. This was a business opportunity. I sat at my desk, staring at the email, my heart pounding. I had started this as a way to take back control of my life. But now I had the chance to change lives. I took a deep breath, flexed my fingers over my keyboard, and typed back, "Let's talk." Starting a business when you have zero business experience is like trying to build a spaceship out of cardboard and duct tape. Now, you have no idea what you're doing, you're pretty sure you're going to crash and burn, and every time you take a step forward, someone tells you all the reasons you're going to fail. But here's the thing about me. I had already survived the worst thing that could have happened to me. So failure? Yeah, that didn't scare me anymore. At first, it was just me and my laptop. I set up a small website, took pictures of my prosthetics, and wrote out a simple message. Custom designed prosthetics made to fit your style. Functional, fashionable, and built for confidence. I posted a few of my designs on social media, not expecting much. Then, one morning, I woke up to 200 messages in my inbox. People were begging to place orders. Mothers asking for something colorful for their kids. Athletes looking for better mobility. A woman who lost her leg in an accident saying she wanted to feel beautiful again. That's when it hit me. This was bigger than me. This wasn't just about selling prosthetics. This was about giving people back a piece of themselves. But let me tell you something. Starting a business, it's messy. I had no clue how to price my designs. I had no supply chain, no team, no way of mass producing anything. For the first few months, it was just me, staying up until 3 a.m., designing, testing, building, shipping. I was exhausted. But every time I saw someone post a picture of themselves wearing one of my designs, every time I got a message saying, "I finally feel like myself again," it kept me going. This was worth it. Then came the email that changed my life. I almost didn't open it. It looked like spam, one of those too good to be true business proposals, but something about it caught my eye. "Hi, Mia. I came across your work, and I'm incredibly impressed. I'd love to meet and discuss an investment opportunity." It was signed by David Langston. I didn't know who he was at the time, but a quick Google search told me everything I needed to know. David was a self-made entrepreneur, one of those people who had built a massive empire from nothing. He had invested in medical technology before, helping startups scale into global brands. And he wanted to meet me. We met at a small coffee shop downtown. David was nothing like I expected. No intimidating suit, no power moves. Just a guy in a hoodie and jeans, sipping black coffee like we were old friends. "I don't invest in companies," he said, leaning forward. "I invest in people. And I believe in you." I swallowed hard. "I don't have a business background." "You built this from the ground up," he said. "That tells me everything I need to know." Then he slid a contract across the table. "I want to fund your company. We scale this. We get you the resources you need. You in?" I didn't hesitate. I grabbed a pen, and I signed. Everything moved fast after that. David's funding helped me set up a real production team. I hired engineers, designers, and a marketing expert who knew how to take my brand to the next level. Orders skyrocketed. One day I was running a small online store. The next, I had a waitlist of over 10,000 people. And then, the moment that changed everything. A journalist from Medical Innovations Weekly called me. "We want to do a feature on you," she said. "Your work is revolutionizing the prosthetics industry." A week later, my face was on the cover of a national magazine. I walked into the grocery store and saw it sitting on the shelf. And I just froze. This was real. I had done this. A few months after the magazine feature, I got an email inviting me to the annual Medical Innovation Awards. I had been nominated. I laughed when I saw it. Not because it was funny, but because I just couldn't believe it. 2 years ago, I had been lying in a hospital bed feeling like my life was over. Now, I was up for one of the most prestigious awards in the industry. The night of the event, I sat at a round table, my heart pounding as the announcer stepped up to the microphone. And the winner for Best Medical Innovation of the Year is Mia Carter, founder of Phoenix Prosthetics. The room exploded in applause. I barely remember walking up to the stage. All I remember is standing there, looking out at the crowd, and realizing this was the life I built. This was mine. A few days later, I got a text from an old friend. "Hey, Mia, I think you're going to want to see this." Attached was a screenshot, a picture of my face, plastered on a TV screen, with the headline, Mia Carter, the woman who revolutionized prosthetics. And below it, a picture of Ryan, watching. He had seen it. He had seen everything. And for the first time, I wasn't the one wondering what could have been, because I knew. I had given everything to a man who couldn't handle my worst days. But I had built something beautiful from my pain, and I didn't need his validation because I had mine. They say regret is one of the worst emotions a person can feel. I wouldn't know because I don't regret losing Ryan. But Ryan, he regrets losing me. Ryan married Elena less than a year after he left me. I remember when I first heard about it. I was still in physical therapy, still trying to figure out how to exist in a world that no longer felt like it had space for me. Someone, maybe an old friend, maybe a cruel acquaintance, sent me the wedding announcement. A perfect picture book ceremony, Elena in a white lace gown, beaming. Ryan in a tux, smiling like he had everything he had ever wanted. He moved on so quickly, like I had been nothing more than a temporary detour in his perfect life. I told myself I didn't care. I told myself it didn't matter. But that night, in the darkness of my hospital room, I cried. Not because I still wanted him, but because I had given him everything. And when I needed him most, he hadn't just left. He replaced me. Ryan thought Elena was a safe choice. No complications, no challenges, just the life he had planned. But safe doesn't always mean right. And over the years, the cracks began to show. Their conversations became repetitive, their laughter less frequent. Ryan started staying late at work, finding excuses to avoid going home. He couldn't figure out why he felt so empty. Until one day, he was flipping through channels on the TV and saw my face. It wasn't just once, it was everywhere. The magazine covers, the interviews, the headline after headline about the woman who revolutionized prosthetics. The woman he left in a hospital bed was now one of the most successful innovators in the world. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. And Ryan, he was watching from the sidelines. He told himself he was happy for me, but deep down, the guilt was eating him alive. At first, Ryan tried to rationalize what he had done. I wasn't strong enough. She deserved someone better. I would have only held her back. But the truth? The truth was simpler and uglier. He was a coward. He left because it was easier than staying, and he left because he didn't want to deal with the hard parts. And now, every time he saw my name, every time he saw the woman I had become, he was reminded of the man he wasn't. It started with one email. Hey, Mia, I saw your interview. Congratulations on everything. I always knew you were meant for great things. I stared at it for a full 5 minutes before closing my laptop. I didn't reply. A week later, another email. Mia, I just wanted to say that I'm really proud of you. What you've done is incredible. I know I don't deserve to say this, but I'm sorry for everything. Delete, then another. I think about you a lot. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wish I could talk to you. Please? Blocked. I owed him nothing. The Mia he abandoned didn't exist anymore. And the woman I had become, she didn't have time for men like Ryan. Falling for someone again wasn't in my plans. I wasn't waiting for love. I wasn't looking for a fairy tale. But sometimes the best things happen when you least expect them. The first time I met Daniel Carter, I was too busy to notice how good-looking he was, which in hindsight is wild because the man was the definition of unfairly attractive. Tall, broad shoulders, that kind of confident energy that didn't feel forced, just natural, like he had nothing to prove. But I was in full work mode when we met, too caught up in a product launch, juggling emails, running on my third cup of coffee. We sat in a glass-walled conference room, discussing expansion plans, production scaling, and potential partnerships. He listened intently, not just nodding along, but really paying attention, asking questions that actually mattered. And then, after an hour of business talk, he leaned back in his chair and said, I need to tell you why I really wanted to invest in you. I paused, wary. All right? He exhaled, glancing down for a moment before looking me in the eyes. My mother lost both of her legs to diabetes complications years ago. His voice was steady, but there was something raw in his expression. She hated prosthetics, said they were uncomfortable, ugly, made her feel less like herself. I swallowed hard, already knowing where this was going. Daniel gave a small, almost disbelieving laugh. Then one day she saw an article about you, about your designs. And for the first time in years, she actually wanted to try again. I blinked. She's using them now, he continued. Your prosthetics gave her her life back. And I can't tell you what that means to me. I sat there stunned, because that was why I started all of this. Not for recognition, not for money, for people like her, for people who wanted to feel whole again. As the weeks went by, Daniel and I kept working together. But the business meetings, they started feeling different, more relaxed, more personal. We talked about things outside of work, music, travel, our pasts. And what struck me the most was this. He wasn't intimidated by me. He didn't look at me like I was a burden or a tragic story or someone to feel sorry for. He looked at me like I was a force, like I was unstoppable. And unlike Ryan, he never flinched when he saw my legs. Once, after a long meeting, I kicked my feet up onto the conference table without thinking, stretching out. He glanced at my prosthetics, then met my eyes with a small smirk. Are these new? He asked, nodding toward them. I raised an eyebrow. You actually noticed? He shrugged. They're different from last week's design. I smiled. Yeah, I added better ankle rotation. Helps with balance. He nodded, thoughtful. I love that. You keep improving, always moving forward. It was such a simple thing to say, but damn, it hit me right in the chest. One evening, after an exhausting day of finalizing a new product line, Daniel caught me just as I was about to leave the office. Mia! I turned around, raising an eyebrow. Yeah? He hesitated, which was unlike him. Then he exhaled and smiled. Have dinner with me. I blinked. You mean a business dinner? No, he said, shaking his head. Not a business dinner, a real one, with good food, good wine, and absolutely no work talk. I stared at him, searching his face, my heart pounding. He wasn't asking out of pity. He wasn't asking because he felt obligated or because he thought I needed him. He was asking because he liked me, because he saw me for who I was now, not who I had been before the accident, not who the world expected me to be. And for the first time in years, I actually wanted to say yes. So I did. It had been years since I had been on a real date, not a business dinner, not some casual let's grab coffee thing, a real honest-to-God date. And to say I was nervous was the understatement of the century. I sat in front of my closet, staring at my reflection, half dressed and fully panicked. My makeup was already done, soft, natural, just enough to make me feel put together. My hair was styled, my outfit laid out, and yet I couldn't move because somewhere deep inside me, a tiny voice whispered, Are you sure about this? It had been so long since I let someone in. So long since I let myself feel anything beyond ambition, beyond survival, beyond the drive to prove to the world that I didn't need anyone. Was I really ready for this? I thought about Daniel, his laugh, his easy confidence, the way he looked at me, not like I was something broken, but like I was something incredible. And just like that, the fear lost its grip. I exhaled, slipped on my prosthetics, and stepped into the dress waiting for me. The restaurant was warm and intimate, all soft lighting and low laughter. Daniel was already waiting when I arrived. And the moment he saw me, his entire face lit up. I felt it in my chest, like maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something real. We ordered wine, shared plates of food, and talked for hours. Not about work, not about business. About life, our childhoods, the dumbest things we'd ever done, the music we grew up on. We laughed. God, I forgot how good it felt to laugh like that. At one point, Daniel leaned back in his chair, studying me with that infuriatingly confident smile of his. You know, he said, swirling his drink, I had a feeling about you from the moment we met. I raised an eyebrow. A feeling? Yeah, he tilted his head. That you were going to change my life. Something fluttered in my chest. Something terrifying. Something beautiful. The morning after the date, I walked into my office, still buzzing with the afterglow of happiness. And then I saw him, Ryan, sitting in the waiting area, looking exactly the same and yet completely different. His suit was perfectly pressed, his hair neatly styled, just like always. But his eyes looked hollow, like he had been carrying something heavy for too long. The receptionist hesitated, glancing between us. Miss Carter, It's fine, I said, even though it wasn't. I've got this. Ryan stood as I approached, his hands shoved in his pockets, his shoulders tense. Mia, he said, his voice softer than I remembered. I crossed my arms. What do you want, Ryan? He exhaled. Can we talk? I led him into my office, closing the door behind us. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Ryan finally broke the silence. I saw you on TV, he admitted, his voice tight. I saw everything. The magazine covers, the award. You've done amazing things. I sat down at my desk, tilting my head. And you think that changes something between us? His jaw clenched. I never stopped loving you, Mia. I should have felt something. Anger, pain, vindication. But all I felt was nothing. Because I had already moved on. Ryan leaned forward, his voice desperate. I made a mistake. I was scared. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I wasn't. I should have stayed. I should have. I held up a hand, cutting him off. You're right, I said simply. He blinked. What? You should have stayed, I repeated. You should have fought for me, but you didn't. I met his gaze, steady and unwavering. And here's the thing, Ryan. You don't get to walk away from me and then decide years later that you want me back. His face fell. You don't get to abandon me in a hospital bed and then show up now, acting like your regret is my responsibility. His breath hitched. Mia, please. No. I shook my head. You made your choice, and I'm not looking back. Silence. Heavy. Final. Ryan swallowed hard, nodding slowly, his shoulders sagging. I really did love you, he said quietly. I gave him a sad smile. I know. And then I stood, walked past him, and left him behind. For good. I used to think love was about grand gestures, the kind of love you see in movies, the passionate, messy, all-consuming kind. The kind where you fight for each other no matter what. But I had learned something. Real love isn't about fighting to keep someone who doesn't want to stay. Real love is steady. Real love doesn't make you question your worth. And now, I finally knew what it felt like. Daniel wasn't just an investor in my company. He was an investor in me. In the months after our first date, we spent more time together. Some nights over takeout and late-night brainstorming sessions, other nights just talking, laughing, living. And the more time I spent with him, the more I realized. This was easy, not easy in a boring way, not easy in an unremarkable way, but easy in a safe way, in a way that felt right. There were no expectations, no doubts, no moments of wondering if he was going to walk away when things got hard. Because he was already there. One night after a long workday, I watched him across the room. He was standing with my team, completely at ease, laughing as he helped them brainstorm a new expansion strategy. He wasn't just sitting at the top, throwing money at problems. He was in it with us, with me. And in that moment, it hit me. This is what love is supposed to feel like. Not heavy, not uncertain, but solid, steady, real. The success of Phoenix Prosthetics exploded beyond anything I ever imagined. What started as a single idea in a hospital bed had become a global movement. We expanded worldwide, launching clinics in cities across the globe. Children who once thought they'd never run again were now sprinting across playgrounds. Athletes who had given up on their dreams were competing again. People who had felt invisible were finally seen. And every single day, I woke up knowing that I had built something that mattered. Not because I needed to prove anything to the world anymore. Not because I needed to prove anything to Ryan, but because I had done this for myself. For the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing approval. I was just living. And God, it felt good. I hadn't thought about Ryan in a long time. But one evening, as I was leaving my office, I spotted him through the glass windows of a nearby cafe. He was sitting alone, stirring a cup of coffee absently, his gaze distant. He looked older, not in the physical sense, but in a way that made it clear he carried the weight of regret everywhere he went. I knew he had divorced Elena months ago. I had heard through mutual acquaintances that his life hadn't turned out the way he thought it would. And now? Now he sat there alone, watching the life he could have had pass him by. I didn't go inside. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Because this was the price of his cowardice. He had made his choice, and I had made mine. I turned away, stepping into Daniel's car as he pulled up to the curb. "Everything okay?" Daniel asked, studying me. I smiled, settling into my seat. "Yeah," I said, glancing once more at Ryan through the window. Then I looked forward. "Everything's perfect."